The Magnificent Seven was not just a heroic Western, it was a powder keg of ego, jealousy, and on-set warfare that nearly derailed the production. Behind the iconic theme, music, and the swagger of Seven Gunmen lay a brutal struggle for dominance, real-life danger that left people injured, and a creative battle with the studio that threatened to gut the film's soul. What audiences did not see were the daily acts of cinematic sabotage, the actors who nearly died performing their own stunts, the international incident sparked by the film's villain, and the deep-seated insecurities that fueled some of the most memorable performances in cinema history. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on 20 weird facts about the Magnificent Seven that will change everything you thought you knew about this classic. And stay tuned to the end for a bonus fact about why the film was outlawed in the very country it was filmed in. Number 20. The set was a Cold War between Yul Brynner and Steve McQueen. The Magnificent Seven was not a friendly set. It was a two-man war for cinematic supremacy, and the combatants were Yul Brynner and Steve McQueen. Brynner, the established star and producer, saw McQueen as a threat, a hungry upstart trying to steal his film. McQueen, for his part, was desperate to emerge from Brynner's shadow and prove he was a leading man. This tension was not just unspoken, it was a daily, grinding battle for screen time. Every scene became a contest. Every line reading was a challenge. The air on set was so thick with animosity that director John Sturges often had to act as a referee. What audiences saw as charismatic chemistry was actually a high-stakes game of actorly one-upmanship, a real-life rivalry more compelling than any fictional feud. Number 19. Steve McQueen mastered the art of scene stealing. Steve McQueen was not just competing with Brynner, he was conducting a masterclass in cinematic thievery. He knew Brynner, as the star and producer, had the power, so McQueen fought back with subtle, almost invisible tactics. He would constantly fiddle with his hat or the shotgun shell he would slide along his gun, drawing the camera's eye even when he was not the focus. During Brynner's close-ups, McQueen would subtly shift his position in the background, creating movement that threatened to pull focus. He would add little bits of business, tossing a coin, checking his saddle, anything to make his character more alive and interesting. It was not just acting, it was a strategic campaign to make audiences remember the guy in the background. Brynner was furious, but he was powerless to stop McQueen's quiet rebellion. Number 18. A stuntman was fatally injured during filming. The on-screen action in The Magnificent Seven was not just thrilling, it was terrifyingly real, and it came with a devastating price. During the filming of the climactic battle sequence, a tragic accident occurred. Veteran stuntman and actor Robert J. Wilk, who played the cowboy who warns the villagers, was involved in a horsefall. While sources differ on the exact circumstances, what is clear is that the fall was severe. Wilkes suffered serious injuries, and although he survived the initial incident and completed his work on the film, the long-term consequences were dire. The incident cast a dark pall over the production, a stark reminder that the magic of practical effects was built on a foundation of genuine human risk. It was not a movie set anymore, it was a place where a man's life was on the line for a piece of entertainment. Number 17. Charles Bronson hated his role and had to be convinced to do it. Charles Bernardo, the stoic, deadly gunslinger, is one of the most memorable members of the Seven. But Charles Bronson initially wanted nothing to do with the role. He felt the character was underwritten. A generic tough guy with no depth or backstory. Bronson, a serious actor, was frustrated with the lack of substance. He repeatedly turned down John Sturges' offers. It was not until Sturges made a personal plea, promising to give Bernardo more screen time and a more meaningful presence, that Bronson reluctantly agreed. Even then, his dissatisfaction simmered beneath the surface. His quiet, intense performance is not just great acting, it is the physical manifestation of an actor trying to inject gravitas into a part he felt was hollow. His reluctance created a character who felt like an outsider, which, ironically, made him perfect for the group. Number 16. Eli Wallach was almost shot by locals who thought he was a real bandit. Eli Wallach's portrayal of the bandit chief Calvera is so charismatic and menacing that it blurred the line between fiction and reality with dangerous consequences. The film was shot on location in Mexico, and many of the local extras and villagers had little experience with filmmaking. During a break in filming, Wallach was still in his full Calvera costume, complete with pistol, when he rode into a nearby town. The locals, seeing what appeared to be a genuine armed bandit arriving, panicked. Some fled, while others grabbed their own weapons, ready to defend themselves. It was only the frantic intervention of the film's assistant directors, shouting in Spanish that he was an actor, that prevented a real-life shootout from erupting. Wallach was not just playing a bandit. For a few terrifying moments, he was one, nearly paying the ultimate price for his convincing performance. Number 15, the studio demanded a happier, more heroic ending. The Magnificent Seven that audiences know ends on a bittersweet, melancholic note, but that was not the ending the studio wanted. United Artists, concerned that the film was too downbeat, pressured John Sturges to reshoot the conclusion. They wanted a more traditionally heroic ending where the surviving gunmen ride off into the sunset as celebrated saviors, perhaps with the grateful villagers cheering them on. The studio executives felt the original ending, which emphasizes the emptiness of the gunfighter's life and the heavy cost of their victory, was too pessimistic for a mainstream Western. Sturges, backed by screenwriter Walter Newman, fought back fiercely. He argued that the somber tone was the entire point of the film, that violence, even for a good cause, leaves scars. Sturges ultimately won the battle, preserving the film's artistic integrity, but it was a major conflict that could have changed the movie's entire legacy. Number 14, the studio fought against Elmer Bernstein's iconic score. It is almost impossible to imagine the Magnificent Seven without its rousing, instantly recognizable theme music. But that legendary score almost never happened. United Artists, wanting to appeal to a younger audience, initially pushed for a contemporary pop soundtrack. They envisioned the film being scored with modern rock and roll or folk songs, a strategy other studios were trying at the time. The idea of a traditional orchestral score was seen as old-fashioned. Composer Elmer Bernstein had to fight to even get a chance to write the music. When he finally presented his theme, the studio was lukewarm. They did not hear a hit, they heard a cowboy song. It was only after Sturges passionately defended the music, insisting it was the soul of the film, that the studio relented. The decision proved to be one of the most consequential in film music history, creating a theme that has become a cultural icon. Number 13, Brad Dexter's casting was a political move to appease Brynner. Not every member of the Seven was chosen purely for their talent. The casting of Brad Dexter as Harry Luck, the gambler, was a calculated political move. Dexter was a close friend and confidant of Yul Brynner. Brynner, feeling the pressure from Steve McQueen's rising star power, wanted a loyal ally on set. He essentially lobbied for Dexter to be cast, creating a small faction he could rely on. While Dexter was a competent actor, his primary function on set was to be Brynner's eyes and ears, a buffer against the perceived threat from McQueen and the other actors. This bit of behind-the-scenes casting created an undercurrent of tension, as the other actors were well aware of why Dexter was there. It was not just a movie, it was a chess game, and Dexter was one of Brynner's key pieces. Number 12, James Coburn's knife-throwing scene was dangerously real. James Coburn's introduction as Britt, the fast draw expert, is one of the film's most iconic moments. He calmly slices a throwing knife in half with a bullet, a feat of impossible marksmanship. But the knife throwing itself was also dangerously real. Coburn, wanting to deliver a stunning performance, opted against using a mechanical throwing device or a stunt double. He learned to throw the knives himself, practicing for hours. In the scene where he throws a knife at a wooden post, the blade is genuinely leaving his hand. While the target was a safe distance away, the risk was still significant. A slight miscalculation or a slip of the wrist could have sent the knife flying toward a crew member or another actor. This commitment to practical in-camera effects was part of the film's DNA, but it also put the cast in genuine peril, all for the sake of a perfect shot. Number 11. The film's budget was so tight, actors had to share costumes. The Magnificent Seven looked like a big-budget epic, but the reality was that the producers were pinching pennies everywhere they could. The budget was so constrained that the actors could not all have unique, custom-made costumes. Many of the background gunmen's outfits were shared among different actors. If you look closely during the campfire scenes, you will notice that some of the vests, shirts, and gun belts worn by the Seven are not consistent throughout the film. This was not a continuity error, it was a cost-saving measure. An actor might wear a certain shirt in one scene, and that same shirt would reappear on another actor in a later scene. It was a classic case of Hollywood magic, creating the illusion of abundance on a shoestring budget. Number 10. The Seven's guns were all authentic period weapons. Despite the budget constraints, the producers refused to compromise on one key element: the firearms. The guns carried by the Magnificent Seven were not cheap replicas. They were authentic, 19th century revolvers and rifles sourced from collectors and armories. Each character's weapon was carefully chosen to reflect their personality. Yul Brynner's Chris carries a pristine, custom Colt single-action army, reflecting his leadership status. Steve McQueen's Vin uses a more common, weathered revolver, fitting his more grounded character. James Coburn's Britt wields a custom Colt with a long barrel, perfect for his sharpshooting. This commitment to authenticity meant the actors were handling real, heavy, and sometimes unpredictable weapons. It added a layer of tangible realism to their performances, as the weight and feel of a genuine gun cannot be faked. Number 9. Most of the Mexican villagers weren't Mexican at all. The film's story hinges on the plight of a poor Mexican village terrorized by bandits. Yet, a surprising number of the actors playing the villagers were not of Mexican descent. Due to the logistics of Hollywood casting and the availability of trained Spanish-speaking actors in the Los Angeles area, many roles were filled by actors of other Hispanic backgrounds, including Puerto Rican, Spanish, and even some non-Hispanic actors made up to look the part. The actress who plays Petra, the romantic interest for Horst Buchholz's Chico, was Rosenda Monteros, who is genuinely Mexican, but she was more of an exception than the rule. This was a common practice in Hollywood at the time, a practice that now seems dated, but it was the industry norm. The film's portrayal of Mexico was, in many ways, a Hollywood construct. Number 8. The creators of Seven Samurai gave it their blessing. The Magnificent Seven is, famously, a remake of Akira Kurosawa's masterpiece, Seven Samurai. This could have been a source of major conflict or legal issues. Instead, it became a story of cross-cultural artistic respect. Before production began, director John Sturges and producer Walter Mirisch made a point of contacting Kurosawa and his production company in Japan. They secured the official remake rights and, more importantly, earned the Japanese master's approval. When Kurosawa eventually saw The Magnificent Seven, he reportedly loved it. He was particularly impressed by how Sturges had adapted the story to the conventions of the American Western while retaining the core themes of honor, sacrifice, and the definition of a hero. Kurosawa's public endorsement gave the film a stamp of legitimacy and helped silence critics who might have dismissed it as a simple copy. Number 7. Horst Buchholz was plagued by insecurity on set. Horst Buchholz, the German actor playing the young, hot-headed Chico, was on the verge of international stardom, but behind his confident exterior, he was deeply insecure. He was surrounded by a cadre of established, tough-guy American actors, and he felt like an outsider. He spoke English with a noticeable accent and worried constantly that he would not be accepted by the cast or the audience. This insecurity manifested in a desperate need for approval. He would often try too hard to be one of the guys, which sometimes rubbed his co-stars the wrong way. Director John Sturges had to spend a great deal of time reassuring Buchholz and building his confidence. In a way, Buchholz's personal struggle mirrored his character's journey, a young man desperate to prove he belongs with the heroes he idolizes. Number 6. The iconic theme music was inspired by a folk song. Elmer Bernstein's score for The Magnificent Seven is a masterpiece of film music, but its central theme did not spring from nowhere. Bernstein later revealed that his primary inspiration was a traditional American folk song. While he never named the specific song, he said he was trying to capture the spirit of the West through a simple, memorable melody that felt like it had always existed. He wanted something that could be whistled or hummed, a tune that embodied the rugged individualism of the characters. He combined this folk inspiration with the rhythmic drive of Mexican mariachi music, creating a sound that was both uniquely American and true to the film's setting. The result was a piece of music that transcended the film, becoming an anthem for heroism itself. Number 5. The film was a box office disappointment in the United States. Today, The Magnificent Seven is hailed as an unimpeachable classic, but in 1960 its reception was decidedly lukewarm, especially financially. The film was a moderate success, but it was far from the blockbuster hit United artists had hoped for. American audiences at the time were growing weary of traditional westerns. The film's initial domestic run failed to recoup its significant production costs. It was only through its overwhelming success in Europe and Japan and its subsequent re-releases in the United States that it eventually turned a profit. The film's journey from box office disappointment to cultural icon took years, proving that a movie's legacy is not always defined by its opening weekend. It was a slow burn that gradually cemented its place in cinema history. Number 4, the Mexican heat and dust were brutally real. The production did not build a set on a studio backlot. They went to Mexico and they paid the price. Filming in the Durango region meant the cast and crew endured extreme conditions. The temperatures often soared above 100 degrees Fahrenheit. The actors, wearing heavy wool costumes and leather gun belts, were drenched in sweat within minutes of stepping outside. The dust was a constant, choking presence, getting into everything: their eyes, their lungs, the camera equipment. Many of the actors, particularly Yul Brynner and Steve McQueen, suffered from heat exhaustion and dehydration. What audiences see on screen is not movie magic dust. It is the real, gritty, unforgiving environment of the Mexican frontier. This authenticity was hard-won, a testament to the cast and crew's endurance. Number 3, the film launched the cool anti-hero in Westerns. Before The Magnificent Seven, Western heroes were often clean-cut, morally unambiguous paragons of virtue like those played by John Ford's favorite actors. This film helped change that. The Seven are not traditional heroes. They are flawed, cynical drifters motivated by money or boredom. They kill with professional detachment. This new archetype, the cool, detached anti-hero, would dominate the Western genre throughout the 1960s, culminating in the spaghetti westerns of Clint Eastwood. The film's characters, with their weathered looks and world-weary attitudes, felt more modern and relatable to audiences in a turbulent era. They were not just cowboys, they were existential figures, questioning their own purpose in a changing world. The Magnificent Seven did not just tell a story, it helped redefine what a Western hero could be. Number 2, Yul Brynner's costume was based on real-life gunfighters. Yul Brynner's all-black outfit, complete with a sleek vest and no tie, is one of the most iconic costumes in film history, but it was not just a stylistic choice by the wardrobe department. The look was directly inspired by real-life Old West lawmen and gunfighters, most notably the photos of Wild Bill Hickok and other figures from the era. Brynner, who was deeply involved in the development of his character, worked with the costume designers to create an outfit that was both stylish and practical. The black clothing was practical. For a gunfighter, it did not show dirt or gunpowder residue. The tight fit allowed for easy movement. The result was a look that felt authentic yet impossibly cool, creating a visual template for the cinematic gunslinger that has been copied countless times since. Number 1. The final shot is a deconstruction of the Western hero. The film ends with Yul Brynner and Steve McQueen riding away, leaving the village and its celebrating women behind. On the surface, it seems like a classic heroic exit, but it is not. It is a moment of profound sadness and emptiness. Chris Adams, Brynner's character, has just delivered a line that defines the film's melancholic heart. The old man was right. Only the farmers won. We lost. We always lose. This final shot is not a celebration of heroism. It is a commentary on the tragic fate of the gunfighter. They have no home, no place in the civilized world they helped create. They are relics, destined to ride alone into an uncertain future. It is a quiet, devastating deconstruction of the Western myth, suggesting that the price of being a hero is a life of perpetual loneliness. Bonus fact, the film was banned in Mexico for years. What even most film buffs don't know is that The Magnificent Seven was officially banned by the Mexican government for several years after its release. The reason? The government's film review board objected to the portrayal of Mexican villagers as helpless, cowardly people who needed to be saved by American heroes. They also took issue with the depiction of the bandit Calvera, feeling that the character, while charismatic, reinforced negative stereotypes about Mexicans as violent criminals. The ban was a major international incident, creating a diplomatic headache for the producers. It was not until years later, after the film's global fame was undeniable and cultural attitudes had begun to shift, that the ban was finally lifted. The very country that provided the stunning backdrop for the film was the one that outlawed it, a truly bizarre twist in the legacy of this Hollywood classic. The Magnificent Seven remains more than just a Western. It is a cultural touchstone that redefined cinematic heroism, behind every swaggering stride and every gunshot. there is a story of artistic struggle, clashing egos, and a relentless pursuit of authenticity. The film's legacy proves that sometimes the most enduring legends are born not from perfection, but from the beautiful, chaotic mess of creation.